If you've ever tried to create a website, you've probably heard the term web hosting. But here's the thing. Most beginners hear that word and immediately get confused. You hear things like servers, bandwidth, storage, uptime, DNS, and suddenly something that sounded simple starts feeling like rocket science. So let's slow it down and explain it properly. What exactly is web hosting? The easiest way to understand web hosting is with a simple example. Imagine you want to build a house. First, you need land where that house will sit. Then you build the house itself. And finally, you give it an address so people can find it. Websites work almost the same way. Your website is like the house. Your domain name is the address. And web hosting is the land where everything sits. Without hosting, your website literally has nowhere to exist on the internet. All the things that make your website work, the text, the images, the pages, the design, the code, they all need to be stored somewhere. That somewhere is called a server. A server is basically a powerful computer that is connected to the internet 24 hours a day. When someone types your website address into their browser, that server sends your website files to their screen. That's how your website becomes visible online. So every website you visit on the internet, whether it's a blog, an online store, or a company website, is stored on a hosting server somewhere in the world. Now here's where things get interesting. Not all hosting is the same. There are different types of hosting depending on what your website needs. For example, many beginners start with something called shared hosting. This is where multiple websites share the same server resources. Think of it like living in an apartment building. You share the building with other people, but everyone still has their own apartment. Shared hosting is usually the most affordable option and works well for new websites or small businesses that are just starting. But as a website grows and gets more visitors, sometimes it needs more power. That's where options like VPS hosting or cloud hosting come in. These provide more dedicated resources, which helps websites handle more traffic, load faster, and run more smoothly. And this brings us to something very important that people often ignore. Your hosting affects your website's performance. If your hosting is slow or unreliable, your website will also feel slow for visitors. Pages may take longer to load. Your website might even go offline sometimes. And if that happens too often, it can hurt your business, your visitors' experience, and even your rankings on search engines like Google. That's why choosing a good hosting provider actually matters more than many beginners realize. A good host keeps your website online, secure, and fast. They handle things like uptime, security, backups, and server performance behind the scenes so your website runs smoothly. And when your hosting is stable, visitors can access your website anytime without issues. For example, hosting providers like TrueHost offer reliable hosting with strong uptime, security features, and performance optimized for websites of different sizes. So whether someone is starting their first website, building a blog, or launching a business site, they have the infrastructure needed to stay online and grow. And once you understand how hosting works, building a website becomes much less intimidating. Because in reality, every website on the internet follows the same basic formula. You get a domain name so people can find you. You get web hosting so your website has a place to live online. Then you build the website itself. And once everything is connected, your website becomes accessible to anyone in the world. So the next time you hear the term web hosting, just remember this. It's simply the service that stores your website and makes it available on the internet. Without hosting, your website cannot exist online.